You deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual, zealous wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host and I'm looking really forward to today's guest. We're talking a little bit of my realm, even though I'm way low as far as my knowledge on peptides, as this gentleman I'm going to introduce after our break. But I'm excited to learn. I'm going to be geeking out on his answers too, just like most of you who are interested in peptides and longevity. And just taking care of our bodies. I love the fact that we've been doing Zealous Wellness for quite a while now, maybe, 6 months, 8 months now. And we've gotten guests from, just people reaching out because they've seen the show and they like the information we're talking about, and it's intriguing, and, a different guest, different weeks and all that. And we always like to talk about things, especially, of course, my opinion about, regenerative health. As far as longevity and keeping us as young as possible, because that's definitely something that I really want to happen for myself. And so being a former NFL athlete, that was kind of part of our, position to begin with. It's part of the job, right? So, staying in shape and being healthy and just having your body function at a ideal rate, and everything with regards to nutrition and speed and agility and strength and all that stuff. And I know that it's tied into health and wellness and longevity. And the people who are living the longest have a lot of things that they've done in their lifetime that have helped. And, the more we learn about, again, our foods and just different things and different supplements and what's real, what's not, what is hurting our bodies more than helping the body. There's a lot of things out there that and marketing is done. These companies have done a very good job at marketing, and it's a little disturbing because of the fact that they're misleading in a sense where they, you go to a grocery store and they just the word protein. If you put the word protein on your box of cereal, and all of a sudden you're going to have all these sales because you claim you have protein in your cereal, which again, it's just a marketing scheme. It's things that are not really fair, in my opinion, because we are not all educated and we don't know any better. If you say it, you have something in your product, you definitely, make sure that we're as consumers are okay with what's in our product. And now, you think of the labels of things of products that have words that you can't even define. That's a problem. I don't know what that is. I have no clue what that is. And then you look at the ingredients list of the same item 30, 40, years ago, it's a fraction of what the ingredients list is now. So what happened? Why are they adding all these things? Now, I know I'm getting off subject with peptides, of course, but the reason I'm saying all that is because we have to combat all this stuff. We have to figure out ways around these kind of things because we're misled. And I think that there's a lot of things out there, and these are popping up in a good way, of course, with peptides. And I want to kind of, I'm going to dive in, ask Tony some questions, which, by the way, is our guest. I'll introduce him when we get back from our commercial break. But I want him to kind of ease our mind into knowing how safe peptides are. And I've kind of covered a little bit of it, but Tony's incredibly more knowledgeable than I am in this field. And when you hear, his credentials, you're going to agree with me as well. So we got an amazing guest that's going to really open our eyes to a lot of things with regards to health and wellness in general, peptides, and just a combination of a lot of things that you'll see his credentials. You'll see what kind of a stud this guy is as far as, Ironman, and a lot of cool things. He's kind of figured out some the fountain of youth type of things that we're all looking for. And I think that he's onto a lot of things with his business and what he offers. So with that said, we'll take a quick commercial break. When we get back, I'll introduce you to Tony.
It is possible. It's different this time. I'm showing up for myself because now I know that weight isn't about effort alone. It's not just calories in, calories out. For years, the world told us it was simple. Eat less, move more, try harder. But science has shown us it's more complex than that. It's a real metabolic condition. That's where GLP-3 comes in. Powered by MBC 267, a naturally derived peptide complex discovered in salmon from the Norwegian Sea and select mushrooms. GLP-3 works with the body's own system to help manage appetite and support metabolic balance. No fighting your body, no forced outcomes, just support where it actually matters. Because when you address the real factors at play, progress feels possible. I'm becoming the best version of myself. This is me and GLP-3.
Hey, so welcome back. I have an amazing gentleman by the name of Tony Medrano. He's an AI innovator, peptide therapy and longevity strategist, a former U.S. Naval Officer, entrepreneur, and 3-time Ironman Triathlon finisher. Tony brings an extraordinary combination of science, technology, business leadership, and athletic endurance. He helps athletes, executives, and international organizations explore advanced solutions involving peptide therapy and molecular diagnostics, artificial intelligence in health and wellness, which I'm very keen on. I'm very interested to hear more about. Athletic performance and endurance, obviously, longevity planning and optimizing living, medical data, model performance, and clinical outcomes, and also the mindset required to compete in a 140.6 mile Ironman. So with degrees from Harvard, Columbia, and Stanford, multiple success startups, groundbreaking work in mobile applications, and 3 full Ironman races completed in 2019. Tony understands what it takes to innovate, persevere, and perform at an elite level. Holy moly, that was a mouthful. That is amazing stuff. Tony, how are you, bud?
Oh, great, Mike. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to talk about zealous wellness today.
Well, I'm excited to get inside your head and teach us all about everything you're involved with. I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions about peptides because I'm on a level of learning peptides. You've already beyond that point, of course. So peptides are very new in this world, in this market. And I think people might have a little bit of reservations about them. And so my first question really would be how do you ease that reservation for people with peptides?
Yeah, well, the first way is explaining what peptides are. So peptides are made in the human body, right? Scientists have discovered that we have about 7,000 peptides within us. And just like supplements, vitamins, drugs were searched for in plants decades ago, they're starting to research for things that help us within our body and within animals' bodies. And so scientists have isolated about 7,000 different peptides. Collagen, insulin, a couple well-known peptides have been around for, more than 100 years. Peptides, chemically, are short chains of amino acids. And think of an amino acid, I think we've all heard of that, as the building blocks of protein. Well, a peptide is somewhere between 2 and 50 amino acids strung together. A protein is more than that, it's bigger. So a peptide is nothing more than a small protein. It's nothing foreign, it's nothing radical like a drug, it's not an exogenous compound, it's something we all have within us. Now, there's about 150 peptides out there in the market. They do different things. We've probably heard about Ozempic, the first peptide that made weight loss achievable by so many people. And this is, within the last 10 years. That's kicked off what we call the peptide revolution, right? So those 150 peptides out there, there are, let's say, 50 of them that are really popular. Some for weight loss, some for wound repair, some for hair and skin improvements, some for mitochondrial health and optimization, all kinds of different things. So one of the important things for the listeners is when people talk about peptides, they're not all the same. It'd be like saying plants. Well, you can't say all plants are bad or all plants are good. There's many different plants. An apple is good and hemlock is bad, right? 2 examples. Peptides can be the same. So it's important to be specific because peptides can help you lose weight. They can help you gain weight. You better make sure you're taking the right peptide and you do your research before. So it's very key to get into the science. But once you get past the ugly spelling and the numbers of peptides, which are just always confusing, they become really interesting from a scientific perspective. I mean, my peptide journey started 30 years ago when I was a military officer. I tore my meniscus, here on a ship out in San Diego. That nagging injury haunted me while I was trying to run Ironmans and do endurance sports, right? And it just seemed to get worse year after year. Well, I'd heard about the peptide BPC 157, and that stands for Body Protection Compound 157. That peptide originates from Pavlov, the doctor who discovered that dogs salivate when you turn the light on. He was studying dogs' gastric juices about 100 years ago. So he isolated the compound. He didn't call it BPC 157. He didn't know that's what it was, but he thought there were some healing properties with dogs' gastric juices, and so he started to sell those as his own elixir of sorts. This is back more than 100 years ago, right? Then in the military, World War I, field medics would actually take severed limbs and place those in a cadaver, a recently killed cadaver's stomach lining, to transport that back to the medical tent so surgeons could then sew it back on. They realized from Pavlov's research that there was some healing properties, preservation properties within gastric juices. I mean, who knew? But this is how science develops over years. There's intuition, then it comes with medical intuition, then it comes with a battlefield innovation, if you will, right? It doesn't have to be on the battlefield. It can be Silicon Valley, or it can be, somewhere else, right? But a lot of innovation takes place until the 1960s, where BPC 157 was isolated by a Croatian scientist, called that compound, and then the athlete community really started using it, because us athletes get hurt, especially as we get older. And Joe Rogan's even talked about this on his podcast, and Andrew Huberman as well. Joe injected it in his tennis elbow, and it healed him up in 2 to 3 weeks. He had the same experience with BPC 157 and TB 500 mixed together, what's commonly called the Wolverine stack. Injected it in my knee, and 2 to 3 weeks, my 30-year-old torn meniscus was healed. It's better now as well. It's still better. And I put on 10 miles yesterday. That's a light day sometimes for me. It's gone through a wear and tear over the years. But that started my peptide journey. After that, I believed. I said, okay, wait a minute. Let me dive deeper into peptides and try some different ones, like a GLP-1, not Ozempic, but Ozempic 3.0, which is called retatrutide, was my second peptide. I lost 40 pounds. I put on a few pounds because of my torn meniscus, and I ate like an Ironman, but I wasn't running like an Ironman, and lost 40 pounds, and hitting the gym 4 hours a day. I had that much energy. I wasn't, a sad dieter. I was an energetic athlete again. And that just really helped fuel my further experimentation into peptides and the starting of LongevityPlan.ai to bring AI to peptide protocols and help people.
Yeah, great segue, because I'm going to ask you about the AI part. How do you incorporate AI into health and wellness? That's I'm sure everyone's got that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so the digital twin concept was first started by NASA in the 70s, and using nuclear power plants to make digital versions of complex systems so they could model them mathematically and digitally, to experiment with them, test on them. Because nobody wants to test on a live nuclear power plant, right? The NFL actually picked up the digital twin concept, and when I worked with them in 2020, supplying them molecular diagnostics, I learned that they made digital twins using AI for their athletes, so they could model things like nutrition, injury prevention, foot placement, and do things like predict hamstring pulls before they happen, so they could get that player on ice after the game and prevent some injuries. Great longevity use case, right? Keep Patrick Mahomes in the game longer, in the season longer, and in his career until his 40s, right? There's millions of dollars at stake. So I loved the digital twin concept then. What we wanted to do at Longevity Plan was bring the cost down, make it affordable to people, simplify it, so people like me, your weekend athletes, could use a digital version of themselves to optimize for longevity, for their performance outcomes, whatever those may be, because they're different. I'm not trying to stay in the game until the playoffs, or stay in the season until the playoffs, but I am trying to run 26 miles after biking 100. There's some different longevity challenges there, right? And I learned in my first Ironman, I was hit by a car 6 weeks before when I was cycling. Separated my right shoulder, had inflammation, all kinds of cascading effects. It was questionable to whether I could compete in the Ironman. So I had to biohack myself without AI back then. I learned right then that, hey, if we can add AI to this biohacking thing, especially the complexity of peptides, because like I said, there's, let's call it 150 of them out there to choose from, all that do wildly different things. AI is pretty useful there because it's hard to keep track not only of yourself, but then to get deep information on peptide use is available for about 80 of those 150 peptides. About 80 of them are FDA approved. The other, 70 are not, so they don't have deep clinical studies. But there's a lot of anecdotal data. Millions of people have used BPC 157. There's no clinical data on it, but there's a lot of doctors prescribing it to injured athletes out there, and it's worked for a lot of people, but not everybody. And a lot of that's because of their genetics. Some of it could be because of how they use it, or their injury, or their age, or other physical ailments. So, right, it's not going to work for everybody, just like a lot of compound supplements. But a great problem where AI can help, and that's what we want to do at Longevity Plan. Is we're making peptides available and making our AI available for people to use to help their own health.
Wow, very, very good. Yeah, you brought up a point there about peptides not working for everyone. One of the things that I experienced personally is I was on MOT-C. Now, I've learned that urolithin A is something I needed to probably take before I got on MOT-C to repair or get rid of the damaged mitochondria, right? Because MOT-C only deals with the healthy mitochondria, making more of them. But if you don't, fix the other ones. So tell us a little bit about that kind of thing.
It's a great example, right? I love that. I have some urolithin A and I have some SS31, an FDA-approved peptide that pairs really well with MOT-C for exactly that too, right? It helps. Well, SS31 repairs the mitochondrial walls. Urolithin A will clean out some of the almost dead mitochondria so that MOT-C can then optimize it and make more. So that's the ideal stack and the ideal protocol to go through, is you would use SS31 and urolithin A before MOT-C, but people often jump to MOT-C because they want more mitochondria. Everybody does. I did it too. It was after retatrutide, my second peptide, MOT-C and GHK-Cu were my third and fourth. For the same reason, I want more cellular energy. The science behind MOT-C is really fascinating. Make more mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, so you have more ATP production, more energy. It's great. Because of MOT-C, I believe I don't drink coffee anymore. I used to need caffeine and energy. Now I've got plenty, and it's coming from a sustained place, not a place that's just a stimulant that's temporary. I take it before my workouts, and it helps me. And then after a couple weeks on MOT-C, I discovered the same thing you did. Oh, I should probably do some urolithin A and some SS31. And it got better.
Yeah, it's good that you a lot of these peptides you're talking about. I'm on as well. I'm on Clo, not the Wolverine, but the Clo. So it's got the GHK Cu, the copper peptide as well. Good for the hair and the skin. Clearly, it's not going to help my hair, but it does. Inflammation and things like that. KBB is another one. It's within Clo as well. So there's stacks. There's just individuals. I started taking C-Link or C-Link, however you pronounce it. Individually today. I was taking a C-Max C-Link combination stack for a while, and I was like, I don't really notice a whole much difference. But tell us about C-Link, because I think it's today. I was coaching this morning. I coach kicking. I've had a kicking academy for many years, but I was on fire, man. I was coming up with these analogies, like where did that come from? My brain was just on fire. I'm like, it had to have been the C-Link. So tell us about C-Link. Do you like it?
Yeah, exactly. So I use both C-Max and C-Link. Usually C-Link and C-Max, say once in the morning. It helps with brain fog, more energy, helps me be more articulate and more on point and more focused, but without a cracked out feeling like an amphetamine or what what is there? Mode Vigil is one product, something like that out there, or Adderall, of course, which sure may give you more focus, but it's not good for you long term. CMAX and Selenk were derived from Russia in the 1980s, where they were doing Cold War research to make their military more productive and to have astronauts and submariners adjust better and repair themselves better when coming back from deployment, so they could be more focused. And the peptide doctor that was the main researcher on this is actually Putin's longevity specialist, works directly for Putin. CMAX, which is my personal favorite, is actually approved over the counter in Russia, and one of their top drugs that's recommended to people because it helps with producing BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like fertilizer for the brain. And it's long-term. It makes you perform better. It doesn't just give you a stimulant like energy that makes you think you perform better. So I love those. CMAX I use more than Selenk because it helps me bust through my work with twice the speed and more creative energy. So as opposed to needing caffeine, nicotine, other things like that that are not good for you in the long term, CMAX and Selenk are. In fact, they're on the list to be evaluated by the FDA for movement into Category 1, which means they can be compounded by more pharmacies in the U.S. Complicated FDA regulatory thing that we won't get into, but it's good news. It means the FDA is recognizing these things. Even though they're not FDA approved yet, there is evidence that they work and that they're safe. And back to your safety question about peptides, because they're made in the human body, the general safety profile of them is good. Now, sure, there hasn't been decades of clinical studies, but they are much more natural than a drug derived in a lab that has never been in a human body before.
Right. Yeah. And, everyone, all of our listeners who have watched me on Zealous Wellness know my opinion about the big pharmas and what the main goal for them is money in their pockets, and they don't care really about our health. And that's just an opinion I have, of course, and I'm sure you can probably back that up as well, Tony.
I agree. What I've seen, and I just see more of it and more of it, the pharma is looking for customers, and a lot of these drugs, like statins, for example, have so many cascading effects that get people addicted, and they just treat the symptoms. And, it makes sense to treat the symptoms because you can treat the symptoms forever. The thing I like about peptides and eating good and exercising is they actually make you better. They make you stronger, and now you don't need anything. I mean, other than testosterone, for the past 10 years, I am on no prescription medication. And I go to the doctor when I'm hurt or when I'm ill, but that's really rare because I take care of myself proactively. I love...
That's exactly what I've been trying to. That's what I do as well, and it's really not that hard. It really is not, and I think that people get, like you kind of mentioned, it's almost like a cycle where you get so dependent on your doctor and dependent on the pills that your doctor recommends, and you only listen to your doctor. Well, guess what? Your doctor's getting cuts from these pharmaceutical drugs that they're recommending you take. So it's clearly an incentive for a doctor to prescribe a lot of medications for you because it pads his pocket too, and so. Yeah, that's a very discouraging sort of thing, but that's why we want to take the passion and the interest in our own health. We got to take it more serious because we can't. I personally can't rely. I don't trust people anymore. It's hard to trust people in these days. Matter of fact, I was just on the phone for an hour with PNC, my bank, talking about disputing a card charge for these copper water bottles. Anybody out there getting copper water bottles, be careful because there are scams everywhere, and these things are not real. So again, we're getting like a lot of scams here and there, but I know I'm venting on other subjects. But tell me more about, like, with regards to, you mentioned a lot of these peptides and what they do. What is it that, because the primary, I guess the regular protocol would be to kind of get some blood work to see what your body's deficient in, what exactly does your body, need. And so you would recommend doing a blood panel and kind of like, things like that, where you can read certain aspects of that blood panel to see exactly what peptides would benefit the clients, right?
Absolutely. It's always good practice to get a blood panel done. Many people get it once a year. I get it once a quarter, and I'd say many athletes are once a quarter, some even once a month. There's some great products where, I have a phlebotomist come to my home and can take it right after the podcast in 5 minutes and then leave. I don't have to worry about that. And then with that, you know where you're at. I'd say one step before that is a genetic test. We actually rolled out a genetic test where you can have your genome analyzed for which peptides will work for you and which supplements and which deficiencies that you have. Now that gives you a in stone record of what's going to work for you for the rest of your life. With blood, it's extremely accurate, but it's more changeable. So now you're able to get your quarterly blood exams, let's see, and see if you have inflammation. Well, maybe you didn't know you had inflammation, or you're like me. I thought inflammation was only for the shoulder. I didn't realize gut inflammation is really what's affecting most Americans out there. And with inflammation, you often can't do a lot of other things. Everything you try to do to improve your health is degraded. There's a lot of other situations like that too. So absolutely, get your blood work done. Ask your doctor to explain what everything is, and then upload it to ChatGPT, or you can use our digital twin as well. Upload it and get your recommendations, because you might not know with all the fancy words what everything means, but there's a story there to be told, and you can really correct it. I mean, I improved my health score 15 out of 100 points this last quarter, primarily because I got my blood work done. I looked at which peptides I wanted to do, which other supplements I wanted to do. I worked out twice as much. I ate better. I tried to learn how to sleep better, because that's always been a weakness of mine, but I knew it. So I wanted to go in and crush this quarter, and I did. The quarter, my blood work was done, and most importantly, I felt better. I just felt great, had more energy. But yeah, blood work is amazing. I don't know why I hadn't been doing that all my life. I just started really 7 years ago when I started running the Ironmans, because I knew I needed to optimize myself a little more if I was going to get through it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. As far as just the concept of finding out what it is we really need in our bodies. And again, you may not know. And again, if you're just going into peptides blindly and just saying, well, I heard this and I heard that, it would be obviously advisable to do your own body, because we're all different, of course, and we all have different needs, and different areas are deficient than more areas than others, of course. But you brought up a point about the Ironman. I want to get inside your head real fast. How do you do it? I mean, what is the mindset? What does it take to run 140 miles, 0.6 miles with the things you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be a little bit insane. There's no
real
reason to do it. It breaks down your body a lot. The hardest thing to do is if you have a regular job like I do. I've been a tech CEO and VP for 30 years now, is finding the time and the energy to do it. I mean, I worked out 5 hours this morning, 4 hours cardio, 1 hour weights. That's from now until November, where my next Ironman is. I will have to do about that, 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's difficult, and pushing yourself cardiovascularly is exhausting. You have to recover, so you have to do everything right. And then learning or relearning the skills to swim, bike, and run. I mean, just the swim alone, 2.4 mile swim in the ocean. And that's only like 10% of the race as far as time goes. So if you think about how hard 2.4 miles in the ocean is, it's hard for me. I swim with one arm now because I separated my shoulder. So I'm a weak swimmer for sure. I'm pretty slow. And now I've got to catch up on a 112 mile bike ride. Really difficult. I'm not a cyclist. I'm kind of a little too thick for a cyclist. I'm 5'10", 180 right now. I usually race at 200, but because of the peptides, I've been able to cut it down. But most of the cyclists, are 150, right, 160. And then you got to run a marathon afterwards. So your body the hardest thing to do is to process cellular waste. Your body is really like an engine or a fire. So you're lighting, fuel and oxygen on fire, using it for energy, and then exhausting that waste. Well, just like a car engine, if it's not running perfectly clean, you're not going to run it for 1,000 miles right in a row. It's going to break down. And that's what happens. So you have to train your body by doing these, 5 hours a day and doing some of them hard, and then doing some where you've got to do a 10-hour a day just to see if your body can handle that much time. So you got to eat perfect, you got to have the right mindset, and then you got to have your system right to where you're getting the right nutrition in and recovery. It's a perfect opportunity for AI and biohacking to be tested for the long term. One of the things I notice is that people call biohacking maybe looking better in the gym or trying to live longer, but they have no outcome. Well, when you're doing Ironman, you've got an outcome. You've got a test at the end of the class to see if your longevity practices were real or if they were fluffy. And that's what we base our longevity outlook is. Well, are we doing things for the long term, for real health, not just for good looks or not just for maybe strength in the gym, but does it work to make you better?
Right. And that's what I deal with. I just, finished up a holistic health coach certification, and I learned a lot. Clearly, I learned a lot about sleep and stress and all that. I really didn't pay much attention to sleep and stress. I didn't know how important it was. But what I've discovered is that there's people out there that really they're scared because of some of the information you said. But I'm like, well, listen, you don't have to be, you don't have to be a hero. In other words, when I go to boxing classes, I see people come in there their very first session, they're trying to really, they're trying to knock the bag off the rack. I'm like, you don't have to be a hero here because you're going to get burnt out. And then they leave after a couple rounds, they're out the door. But that's what I'm saying. My biggest thing is, you got the extreme like yourself. But again, you got to be a little crazy and a little insane. But again, it's something that you enjoy doing. So that's a passion of yours, clearly. But Ironmans and triathlons are not passionate for a lot of people, including myself. I'm horrible at endurance. But you got the other end of the spectrum where people are kind of maybe overweight or lazy, or they've bought into the system. And that's what I'm trying to do is break people out of the system without the fear of having to be a triathlon man. You don't have to do that. You can just move, just giving people direction on just going for walks is a lot that they're not even used to, and it's going to make a huge difference. We talked about stretching and sprinting and everything last week as far as on Zealous Wellness, and I think that people kind of miss the boat when it comes to the commitment of making your life a little bit better. Now we introduce peptides that will help in a non pharmaceutical way, we'll say, because they're natural. Like you said, they were created in our bodies anyways. They're just messengers. They're just telling our bodies how to fix itself. And I think that's an amazing opportunity for people to kind of, a little cheat code will say, but yeah, it's not, when I'm on retatrutide, and I'm sure that's something you probably obviously know a lot about because it's a very, very popular peptide, but I lost 10 pounds and now I'm 168. I weighed myself this morning. I'm usually 180. But I don't eat great. I like to say I do, but I don't. And I'm exercising a lot, but the older I got, the more I found out that it's not about just exercise. That's what I thought. Oh, I exercise so I can eat like crap. Well, that turned out to be a bad decision. So I realize now that I've got to do both. I got to exercise and eat somewhat healthy. And then, of course, with the peptides, I feel great. And I've been telling people since I've been on peptides for the last 6 months or so, I feel amazing, and people are missing out on an opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about peptides and take a chance of see what they can do for you, of course. And it's a little bit of a process, but I think you'd rather be safe than sorry as far as going in and understanding the process of learning about peptides and taking them than going to a doctor and get on a regimen that you're stuck with.
Exactly, something that's addictive. That's one of the other hidden dangers of a lot of these drugs is they are addictive, and they're made to be addictive, right? The peptides did the exact same thing with me that they did for you. Is they helped me lose weight right away, avoid eating junk food, and actually brought my alcohol consumption down about 99%. Like I used to drink a couple beers after a workout. I think I was tough guy. Now I don't crave it, and it's wonderful. I crave like salmon and vegetables, and it's just so much easier. I feel so much better day after day. Yep. It would be hard to do that without a little help from, we'll call it the discipline of a GLP-1, and a little help to repair myself as quickly without the messenger of BPC 157. And I've just, I'm 55. I'm still training for these Ironmans. My most recent one was my my personal best as far as time goes. I think I'm going to be able to beat that this year. So I'm still getting stronger as I go, but I'm spending time researching, making sure I do the right things, eat the right things, and, have the motivation to exercise. Because I think most of us know what to do, but sometimes you need a little extra motivation. Just like you said, walking. You walk a little more every day, go in the direction of doing a little more exercise and eating a little better. And I think people will be just better off with that simple rule of thumb.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great piece of advice. With regards to just simple changes will make better results, better results than you possibly would think either as well. So with regards to changing a little bit about your diet, and you are right about the retatrutide and about the attitude of food, the food noise. I don't have cravings for junk food anymore either, and I didn't even realize that was part of the process. I was like, I'm not lose some weight with this, but I'm attracted to sweets anymore as like I used to. So awesome information, of course. And I think that everybody really needs to kind of learn that, with just a little bit of a lifestyle change, you'll start to feel how much better you're feeling, of course. And you take that and just baby steps and just kind of just grow with that. I think people kind of are afraid to jump into it, and they think, I made that commitment, and they make too high of a goal. I want to lose, 20 pounds in a month. Like, that might be a little struggle, especially at the beginning. When you first start, whether it's peptides and or a diet change, of course, because it does take a little while for your system to kind of see what you're doing and then adapt, and then you start to see the weight's just starting to shed off you. And then, of course, the best part about all this is how well you feel. You're 55, I'm 54. We probably both, I know you probably feel like you're 20 years old. I do too. Yeah. I love it.
Exactly. It's great. I love it. And the energy is contagious to people that you work with or that you love. And then you get more done during the day too. So you're better at work, and I just love it. The having the energy of a person in my 20s.
We are in a win-win situation here. So guys, everybody understand the fact that, with just a little slight lifestyle change, we don't have to run triathlons or marathons or anything like that. Ironman, clearly I'm not going to. That's your gig. You can do what you want there, but just a slight lifestyle change, maybe add some peptides in there and things that like Tony offers, the AI, use it to our advantage at these times. We're living in a very cool time of the world right now. This is amazing to see the innovations and things that AI is really creating.
Exactly. It's creating so much leverage and opportunity. I mean, we work with a ton of coaches, wellness practitioners, executive coaches and advisors and their clients. So they can use our AI while they use our peptides to optimize. It saves a lot of time. It makes things fun and easy, and you get great answers that way, as opposed to going to a library and doing the research. That takes forever. You can get the right answers from AI, and they're pretty personalized too. So we really believe in, personalized, preventative performance medicine, right? Everybody wants to perform a little better. And when you view at it through those lenses, you're catching things ahead of time. So instead of treating the disease and the symptoms once you're already sick, you get ahead of it, and now you never have to feel sick. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, it's the reactive part. Like, we want to be proactive, not reactive, and that's really the bottom line, guys. Is that's a major statement there, because when you're proactive, you don't have to get to a position where you have to be reactive, and it's a very good feeling. And you and I both know I'm very rarely sick, and the only time I'm ever going to see a doctor is if I have a body function as far as a broken bone or something, or maybe get sick from something out of my control. Yes, but I couldn't tell you the last time I saw a doctor. With the NFL, the former players, we get these little brain and body scan type of things that are pretty intensive, and they keep an eye on our health if we want to, and they're free, so they pay for them. And I take advantage of those every year, and those are my doctor checkup type of things every year. If I have an opportunity to go to one of those, I do. So it's all about understanding your body, creating that opportunity to take care of your body without the pharmaceutical drugs. And Tony and everybody involved in the peptide world, myself included, we definitely see that there's a silver lining when it comes to our health and wellness, and just a different way of looking at it in a much more natural, holistic way. I'm all about being holistic. So Tony, tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, and if there's anything we left out, anything you want to plug, anything that we want to leave off before we end the show.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn under Tony Medrano. I'm the one wearing the triathlon gear, so you can see in the picture. Our website, longevityplan.ai, and we have a great affiliate program for coaches and wellness practitioners, med spas, chiropractors, where we pay 20% for life for any of their clients that they refer to us to buy peptides. Now, we don't do coaching. We supply coaches with the tools and the peptides to make their client relationships better so they can keep their clients in a competitive coaching environment. So yeah, we're all about helping coaches with AI and peptides.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, this has had to be one of our most informative shows with regards to health and wellness, and more specifically peptides. And so definitely want to thank you, Tony, for joining us tonight, and look forward to possibly another show later on down the future, because I love your content. I love to hear like-minded people, and of course I'm learning from you, brother. I tell you, I'm still in that learning process of peptides, so I have no shame into. I'm not going to try to kid you and tell you that I know everything about peptides. You clearly have the trophy on that. So again, thank you so much, and we're going to prepare for another show next Monday night at 5:30 on Zealous Wellness. So I hope you guys have an amazing Monday night. And I'm off to a former Jaguars, Legends, our Jaguar Legends community. We're having an event. It's a bowling event up the road here. So I'm about to head off to that and see some of my former teammates. So it'd be a good night for me as well. But I love you all. So I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you again, Tony. And we'll see you guys next week at 5:30 on Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Take care.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.